as the city was besieged, the enemy commander made a demand. If I sacrificed my life for the country, he would spare all the citizens in the city. Dressed in a royal gown as crimson as a wedding dress, I resolutely leaped from the city wall. As the wind howled past my ears, I faintly heard a heartbreaking cry. The young General Gu Jinyan, who guarded the border year-round and was my lifelong rival whom I had bickered with since childhood, had actually rushed from thousands of miles away to catch my falling body, holding my cooling body. He wept in utter despair. Later on, my drifting soul saw Gu Jinyan holding my body, stepping up to the highest cliff pace by pace, and jumping off without a moment's hesitation to rest in peace with me forever. At that moment, I finally understood that I was not unloved in this world after all. When I opened my eyes again, my imperial father's voice echoed in the imperial study.
Yuning, you have reached the age of majority. It is time to arrange your marriage. I have chosen 3 of the most outstanding young men in the capital for you. Grand Secretary Shi Linyuan is aloof and noble. Heir apparent Xiao Jingheng of the Dingyuan Marquisate is upright and self-disciplined. Young Master Wen Hengyu of the Duke of Zhen's mansion is as gentle as jade. Is there anyone you favor?
My fingertips trembled slightly. I lowered my eyes to hide the pain within them. The 3 gentlemen are all outstanding talents, and your daughter finds it difficult to choose at this moment. I boldly beg Imperial Father for a blank imperial decree. By the day of my coming-of-age ceremony at the end of the month, your daughter will write down the name of the prince consort myself.
I look forward to your choice on your coming-of-age day.
I bowed to express my gratitude. As I walked out of the imperial study, the sunlight made my eyes sting. In truth, it was not that I could not choose, but rather, I had already married them all. In my past life, I first married Shi Linyuan, but on our wedding day, assassins attacked the palace. But he died to save my personal maid, Ruo Qingyan. On his deathbed, he held Ruo Qingyan's hand and said,
"If there is a next life, I hope Her Highness will not marry me. My heart belongs to someone else."
Later, I remarried to Xiao Jingheng. During a spring outing, we encountered bandits. He too sought to protect Ruo Qingyan's safety. He was stabbed multiple times. Before taking his last breath, he looked at Ruo Qingyan with tears in his eyes and said,
"I have loved you for a long time."
The 3rd time, I married Wen Hengyu. But later, to save the abducted Ruo Qingyan, he charged into the enemy camp all by himself. As 10,000 arrows pierced his heart, in his final moments, his eyes were still fixed on Ruo Qingyan, losing my husband 3 times in a row, each accompanied by the heart-wrenching declaration of only loving Ruo Qingyan. I became the laughingstock of the entire capital. I had a breakdown at one point, feeling that perhaps I truly did not deserve to be loved, until the enemy army pressed upon our borders and advanced to the city walls. The enemy commander declared that if the princess sacrificed herself for the country, he would spare all the citizens in the city. Dressed in palace attire, as red as a wedding gown, I leapt down from the city wall, martyring myself for my nation. As the wind howled past my ears, I seemed to hear a heart-wrenching cry. The young General Gu Jinyan, my lifelong rival who stationed at the border for years and with whom I had bickered since childhood, actually rushed from thousands of miles away, caught my falling body. He held my gradually chilling body, weeping with absolute heartbreak, as if he had lost the most precious treasure in the world. Later, my wandering soul saw Gu Jinyan repel the enemy forces with thunderous force, holding the city. Then, holding my corpse, walked step by step up to the highest cliff, and without a moment's hesitation, he threw himself off the cliff, joining me in death. At that moment, it suddenly dawned on me. As it turned out, in this world, it wasn't that no one loved me, though I didn't know why his deep love for me was never spoken. In this lifetime, I will not miss my chance with him. So, on that blank imperial decree, the name I wanted to write was Gu Jinyan. I remember it clearly. During my coming-of-age ceremony in my past life, even though he was far away at the border, he still rushed back, covered in the dust of the road. This time, I will, before all the court officials and nobility, announce my marriage to him. Holding the imperial decree, I had just reached the palace gates when I immediately saw those 3 distinct and equally eye-catching men fussing over someone with concern. It was none other than my maid, Ruo Qingyan. Ruo Qingyan wore a plain maid's uniform, yet it could not hide her delicate beauty. At this moment, she had her head slightly bowed, her cheeks flushed, looking incredibly bashful. Shi Linyuan's expression remained cold as usual, but when his gaze fell upon Ruo Qingyan, it softened slightly. Xiao Jingheng stood tall and straight, with an upright posture, yet he carefully shielded shielded Ruo Qingyan from the wind. Lord Wenheng, with a gentle smile on his face, was whispering something to Ruo Qingyan. Seeing me come out, the three of them quickly composed themselves and stepped forward to greet me.
Your Highness, we heard His Majesty wishes to choose a husband for you. We wonder if Your Highness has anyone in mind.
Shi Linyuan spoke first, his voice like the striking of fine jade, cold and pleasant to the ear. Xiao Jingheng followed immediately.
If Your Highness has made a decision, you might as well let us know, so that we may prepare early.
Prince Wenheng's smile was gentle, but his words were the most direct.
Your Highness's choice concerns our lifelong fate. I hope Your Highness will make it clear.
Looking at the nervous expressions of the three men, I only found it incredibly ironic. In my past life, I had naively thought that their frequent appearances before me were because they adored me. Only now did I understand that they were afraid I would choose one of them, ruining any chance they had with their beloved Ruo Qingyan. The corners of my lips curved into a faint smile, but it did not reach my eyes. When the day of my coming-of-age ceremony arrives, you gentlemen will naturally find out. The three men showed different expressions. Shi Linyuan's gaze darkened slightly. Xiao Jingheng's brow furrowed imperceptibly. The smile on Wen Hengyu's face also faded a bit. They watched as I took Ruo Qingyan onto the Princess Mansion's carriage. Just like before, the three of them immediately mounted their horses. On the surface, they were escorting the princess back to her mansion, but in truth, their real motive was obvious to everyone. I leaned against the wall of the carriage, slowly closing my eyes. Just as the carriage began to sway slightly, and I was about to close my eyes for a nap, a sharp shriek suddenly came from outside the carriage.
Assassins, protect the princess.
In an instant, the sound of arrows piercing the air, the clashing of weapons, and the shouting of guards erupted suddenly, falling into complete chaos. My heart tightened, and I instinctively lifted a corner of the carriage curtain. Outside, swords flashed and blades shadowed. In utter confusion. Yet, at this life and death moment, I saw clearly that the three men who had repeatedly claimed they wanted to escort me did not hesitate for a second. They lunged simultaneously toward Ruo Qingyan, who stood frozen in fear next to the carriage. Shi Linyuan's sword flashed like a ribbon of light, deflecting a stray arrow shot toward Ruo Qingyan. Xiao Jingheng shielded Ruo Qingyan tightly behind him, using his own back to block any potential danger. Wen Hengyu grabbed Ruo Qingyan by the wrist, pulling her away from the most dangerous part of the battlefield. As for me, the actual princess, it seemed I had been completely forgotten by them. With a sharp thud, a stray arrow pierced the carriage wall, sinking precisely into my shoulder blade. An agonizing pain surged through me. My vision went black, and I collapsed limply to the floor. The last thing that registered in my eyes was still the sight of those three shielding Ruo Qingyan with their backs. As my consciousness drifted in and out, I felt myself being carried back to the princess's manor and placed onto my familiar bed. Through the screen, I could faintly hear whispered voices coming from outside. It was Ruo Qingyan's tearful, timid voice.
My lords, why did you all come to protect a mere servant girl like me? Her Highness the Princess is the one of noble birth. My life is cheap. I am truly not worth such protection from you, lords. If anything were to happen to Her Highness, even 1,000 deaths would not redeem my guilt.
Then came the voices of the three men to whom I would have entrusted my life. Shi Linyuan's voice was as cold as ever, yet it carried a rare gentleness.
Lady Qingyan, your life, to me, is far more important than the princess's.
Xiao Jingheng spoke immediately after, his tone solemn.
Lady Qingyan, do you truly not understand our feelings? During the Lantern Festival that year, amidst the sea of fire, you risked your life to drag the three of us out. Since that moment, we have all fallen deeply in love with you.
Wen Hengyu's voice was the gentlest, yet it was also the most heartbreaking.
Qingyan, no matter who you eventually choose, the other two will also protect you and keep you safe for the rest of your life without any regrets.
Behind the screen, I felt as if I had been struck by lightning, and my entire body went ice cold. The Lantern Festival, saving them from the fire. I clenched my sleeves tightly, my fingertips digging deep into my palms. That was clearly during the Lantern Festival that year, the pavilion had accidentally caught fire. I happened to be passing by, and disregarding my own safety, I rushed into the sea of fire, dragging the three of them out with all my might as they were trapped by the thick smoke. But I myself fainted from inhaling too much smoke and pure exhaustion. Before losing consciousness, I only had enough time to instruct Ruo Qingyan, who had rushed over, take good care of the three lords. But I never expected that Ruo Qingyan would actually take credit for saving their lives. A wave of immense grievance and anger surged in my heart. I almost struggled to sit up to tell the truth, but in the next moment, memories of my past life flooded back like a tide. In this lifetime, my heart had already died, and I no longer cared about them. Explaining, arguing, had long lost all meaning. Utterly exhausted, I fell back into a deep sleep. When I woke up again, the pain in my shoulder was still severe. I looked up and saw Shi Linyuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu standing side by side next to my bed.
Your Highness, please forgive us. When the assassins attacked yesterday, the situation was extremely critical. In our haste, we mistaken Qingyan for your Highness, which led to your Highness being injured. This is truly our fault. We hope your Highness will be magnanimous and not take out your anger on an innocent person.
Shi Linyuan was the first to speak, his face bearing just the right amount of apology. Listening to his words, which seemed to beg for forgiveness, but in fact excused Ruo Qingyan at every turn, as if terrified that I would blame her, I found it utterly ironic. I gave a soft as a response, and then, seizing this opportunity, calmly gave my order, passed down my word. Ruo Qingyan was also frightened yesterday. Let her recuperate well. There is no need for her to serve before her Highness anymore. After all, as long as Ruo Qingyan was not around, these three would not appear before me either. As soon as these words were spoken, all three of them visibly breathed a sigh of relief, and the way they looked at me even softened slightly, for once, to make amends. Over the next few days, the three of them sent a steady stream of precious herbs to the princess's manor. Rare trinkets and exquisite silks flooded in like flowing water. For a time, rumors like Her Highness has captured the hearts of the three lords spread throughout the capital, leaving countless noble ladies heartbroken and envious. Only I knew, clearly, that behind these seemingly attentive gestures, there was not a shred of affection. There was only compensation and placation because their beloved was temporarily safe. That night, I woke briefly from the severe pain of my wound, only to see a pale and frail Ruo Qingyan carrying a bowl of medicine, walking in with faltering steps.
Your Highness, it is time for your medicine.
Did I not tell you to recuperate well, and that you did not need to come?
Your Highness is of noble birth. While this servant is lowly, how could I neglect your Highness over a minor discomfort? Serving your Highness is my duty.
As Ruo Qingyan spoke, she stepped forward to feed me the medicine. I refused again. Leave it. I will do it myself. As we pushed the bowl back and forth, Ruo Qingyan's wrist suddenly went limp.
Oh no.
More than half a bowl of scalding medicine suddenly spilled out, pouring entirely over my bare arm. A sharp pain shot through me. In agony, I instinctively flung my arm out to shake off the hot liquid, happening to collide with Ruo Qingyan, who was standing right next to me. Ruo Qingyan let out a cry of alarm and stumbled backward, falling right onto the sharp shards of the broken porcelain bowl. Her palm was instantly sliced open, dripping with blood. In the next instant, the door was flung open. Apparently, the three men who happened to come visit the princess again rushed inside. When they saw the scene in the room, me sitting on the bed, my arm red and swollen, and Ruo Qingyan collapsed on the floor, her hand bleeding profusely, their faces instantly darkened. Xiao Jingheng and Prince Wenheng immediately stepped forward, helping Ruo Qingyan up with immense concern and distress. Prince Wenheng was the first to pull out a silk handkerchief to press against her wound. Shi Linyuan, however, had an icy expression, his gaze shooting toward me like a knife as he questioned me harshly.
Your Highness, what are you doing? Why did you push her?
Looking at their indiscriminate accusations, my heart ached, yet I had no tears left to shed. Taking a deep breath, I suppressed my surging emotions and calmly lifted my arm, which was now red and blistered from the burn. I didn't push her on purpose. She was the one who knocked over the medicine bowl first and burned me. I only accidentally bumped into her because of the pain. Seeing this, Ruo Qingyan immediately struggled to kneel down, tears pouring down her face like rain.
My lords, please be the judge. Every single mistake is mine. My hand slipped, and I failed to hold the medicine bowl steady, which burned Her Highness. It is only right for Her Highness to punish me. I beg you, my lords, do not blame Her Highness. This servant deserves 10,000 deaths.
Her theatrical display only made the three men feel more protective and sympathetic toward her, further convincing them that I was behaving in a spoiled and tyrannical manner, deliberately taking out my anger on Ruo Qingyan. Shi Linyuan gave me a cold glance, and was the first to support Ruo Qingyan as she was about to kowtow, his tone brooking no argument.
The wound on your hand is what is important. Go and have it bandaged first.
Ruo Qingyan looked at me with a face full of hesitation and fear.
But the princess.
We are here with the princess.
Xiao Jingheng said in a deep voice, though his gaze remained fixed on Ruo Qingyan's bleeding hand. Taking advantage of the moment, he helped her up. Wen Hengyu quietly slipped a bottle of excellent golden sore ointment into Ruo Qingyan's sleeve. Only then did Ruo Qingyan look back with every few steps, trembling and faltering, as she withdrew with tears streaming down her face like rain. Once Ruo Qingyan had had departed, the three men finally turned their gazes back to me, their eyes now carrying obvious displeasure and reproach.
Your Highness, we explained clearly the other day that we only mistook her identity because the situation was urgent. Since you already promised not to take your anger out on Qingyan, why have you gone back on your word and made things so difficult for her?
Shi Linyuan's voice was frosty, enduring the burning pain on my arm and the icy chill in my chest. I repeated, I said, I did not make things difficult for her. Shaich was the one who—
Your Highness, the facts are right before us. Why must you make excuses?
Xiao Jingheng interrupted me, his tone carrying disappointment. Wen Hengyu let out a sigh, seemingly trying to smooth things over, but actually showing blatant favoritism.
Your Highness, Qingyan is of a gentle and submissive nature, and she would never lie. As for your burn, we will summon the imperial physician to treat it for you shortly. It is only that we hope your Highness will be more lenient in the future, be more forgiving.
The three of them didn't believe me at all, nor did they bother to say anything more to me. Shi Linyuan was the first to fling his sleeves and leave, under the pretext of brewing the medicine again for her highness. Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu hastily treated my burn, then excused themselves to go see how Lord Shi's medicine brewing is progressing, hurriedly departing. Later, I learned from my trusted maid that after those three left, they did not go to the kitchen, but went straight to the servants' quarters to visit the deeply wronged and gravely injured, pitiful Ruo Qingyan. After hearing this, I simply waved my hand indifferently and dismissed the maid. There was not the slightest surprise in my heart, only a sense of the ridiculous. She was the savior they cherished above all else. They could not bear to see her suffer even a single grievance. But did they ever think that they were blind and foolish and had all mistaken her identity? I drank the newly brought medicine in one gulp. The dregs were bitter, but it was not a fraction of the bitterness in my heart. Before my shoulder wound could heal, a burn was added to it. Physically and mentally exhausted, I fell into a deep sleep again. Yet, over the next few days, even though I took my medicine on time, not only did my injuries show no sign of improvement, but the arrow wound on my shoulder blade began to swell and fester, showing signs of rotting. The pain was relentless day and night. Shi Linyuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu, seeing this, all wore grave expressions. On one hand, they denounced the imperial physicians as quacks, solemnly claiming they had sent people to search for a divine physician, while on the other hand, they gently comforted me, telling me to endure it just a little longer. I lay there groggily, my consciousness often drifting. I too thought it was because of the physician's lack of skill, or because my own injuries were too severe, until one afternoon, I woke up briefly from the sharp pain in my wound. Low voices in conversation came from behind the screen, drifting clearly into my ears. They were the voices of Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu.
To vent your anger on Qingyan's behalf, you secretly switched Her Highness's medicine. By now, she has suffered enough. Her fever won't subside, and her wound is festering. This medicine, is it time to switch it back?
After a moment of silence, came Shi Linyuan's cold and unperturbed response.
Yes, but you are indeed ruthless. Qingyan already said that day she didn't blame Her Highness, yet you actually used medicine that would cause the wound to rot.
Wen Hengyu sighed softly, his tone sounding somewhat helpless, yet carrying a hint of indulgence. Shi Linyuan's voice turned a bit colder, carrying a chilling indifference.
She should be glad Qingyan only had her hand scratched. If Qingyan had been injured more severely, then it wouldn't be as simple as switching medicine. Let's go. At this hour, Qingyan should be awake. Let's go see if the injury on her hand still hurts.
The footsteps grew distant behind the screen. My entire body began to tremble violently. It was like falling into an ice cellar, and my blood seemed to freeze. What did I just hear? Switching medicine, a rotting wound, to vent anger on Ruo Qingyan's behalf. So the torment I suffered these past few days was not an accident, nor was it because my condition was severe. Instead, to avenge my maid, they had done it with their own hands. These men were actually heartless to this extent. Intense agony and overwhelming hatred swept over me. My vision went black, and I completely lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I no longer used those ineffective wound medicines, but switched to the best ointment for wounds. Although its effects were harsh, it worked extremely fast. By the time the wounds on my shoulder and arm finally scabbed over and fell off, leaving only pale pink scars, the capital welcomed the annual Lotus Feast. In previous years, I was always the one who looked forward to the Lotus Feast the most, preparing my new dress early on. But this year, I had little interest, and even declined, claiming to be ill. However, Shi Linyuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Prince Wenheng arrived together, coming in person to the princess's manor.
Your Highness has been shut inside the manor for a long time. Since your wounds have fully healed, It is exactly the time to go out and relax.
Shi Linyuan's tone was cold, yet carried unquestionable weight. Xiao Jingheng stood upright and agreed.
The scenery at the Lotus Feast is pleasant, and talented scholars will gather there. Your Highness has always been refined. Would it not be a pity not to go?
I heard that the twin lotuses in the lake are blooming exceptionally well this year, which signifies good fortune. Your Highness might as well go and have a look to change your mood.
Prince Wenheng smiled gently, his words being the most considerate. Their words were earnest, and they seemed to have only my best interests at heart. Had I not been reborn, I would have almost been moved by this care again. I sneered in my heart. How could they possibly want me to relax? They were merely looking for an excuse to bring Ruo Qingyan out of the manor as well, so that their beloved could also see this lively event. In the end, I was still half invited and half forced by them into the carriage. As expected, Ruo Qingyan was already waiting by the carriage with her head bowed, looking timid and sheepish. Seeing me arrive, hurriedly saluted, looking weak and submissive. During the carriage ride, perhaps wanting to fish for Ruo Qingyan's preferences from me, the three of them actually took turns coming into the carriage to keep me company. Shi Linyuan discussed poetry with me, yet constantly managed to casually ask, "Does Lady Qingyan also read poetry on regular days?" Xiao Jingheng shared his thoughts on the scenery of the 9 provinces with me, only to add at the end, if Lady Qingyan were to see such a sight, she would surely be delighted as well. Prince Wenheng even brought up a box of steaming hot pastries, saying he had made a special detour to the most famous pastry shop in the north of the city to buy them for Her Highness to taste. I opened it to look. It was a dazzling array, yet more than half of them were of the cloyingly sweet flavors I recalled Ruo Qingyan preferring. My heart turned entirely cold, finding it incredibly ironic. I closed my eyes to feign sleep, turning a deaf ear to their words. Upon arriving at the banquet venue, the three of them initially sat with me in the water pavilion for a brief moment, receiving the attentive stares of the crowd. But in less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, they one after another found excuses to leave. It was either to exchange pleasantries with colleagues, to admire the prized lotuses, or to appreciate new poems. I could not be bothered to care, leaning against the railing alone, until, feeling a bit suffocated, I wanted to find a quiet spot, only to accidentally spot them behind the rockery, along with Ruo Qingyan, who was surrounded by several playboys. As it turned out, a drunken young noble was angry that Ruo Qingyan had accidentally bumped into him and soiled his new clothes. He was insulting her with harsh words and even putting his hands on her. Ruo Qingyan was pale with fright, her eyes brimming with tears, as she looked helplessly at the 3 men who had rushed over. The next moment, Shi Linyuan's face suddenly darkened, a cold light flashing in his eyes. He abruptly drew the sword from his waist, with a flash of the blade and a shrill, miserable shriek. The playboy's hand was severed clean at the wrist. Blood sprayed out in torrents. The entire venue instantly fell dead silent. Everyone was stunned by this sudden, bloody scene. My face also turned pale with horror. I looked at Shi Linyuan in disbelief. Although he was the Grand Secretary and possessed overwhelming power, inflicting such a brutal punishment on a nobleman's son in public was far too terrifying. Yet, Shi Linyuan acted as if he had merely brushed dust off his clothes. He swept a cold gaze over the screaming crowd, and his eyes finally, by chance, landed on me as I rushed over upon hearing the noise. His tone was as cold as iron.
Impudent? How dare you disrespect the princess's maid? Today, I sever your hand to serve as a warning to others. If there is a next time, it will not be just a hand that is severed.
Hearing this, the crowd suddenly showed expressions of realization and awe. They all looked at me, whispering among themselves. So it was to defend the princess's honor. The Grand Secretary truly protects the princess. Only I knew that the one he protected was never me. That ruthless strike of his sword was for Ruo Qingyan. Dragging me into it was merely to find a dignified excuse, making me accept this favor while silencing the public's tongues. I watched Shi Linyuan sheath his sword, his posture remaining noble and aloof, as if the violent assailant from just moments ago were not him. The chill in my heart grew even deeper. At another pavilion, the scholars were admiring the lotuses and painting. Xiao Jingheng's painting was passed around and praised by everyone. Someone asked out of curiosity,
Young Marquis, in this painting of yours, why did you only paint a pool full of lotuses and the silhouette of a woman's back? This silhouette is so slender and graceful. Could it be that you painted Her Highness the Princess?
Xiao Jingheng smiled slightly, and a rare trace of gentleness appeared on his handsome, upright face.
Indeed.
The crowd instantly erupted into envious admiration. The young marquis is truly deeply devoted to the princess. The artistic conception of this painting is so profound and filled with endless affection. I caught a glimpse of the painting from afar, but in my heart I could only sneer. That slender silhouette, with her hair styled in such a simple bun, was clearly dressed as a palace maid. How could it possibly be me, the princess? The one Xiao Jingheng painted was Ruo Qingyan, who was blending in with the lotus-picking maids. He actually dared to be so flagrant. Yet, he still credited this show of deep affection to my name. During the poetry recital session, Wen Hengyu took first place without suspense. The prize was an incredibly exquisite and precious green jade lotus hairpin. Everyone assumed he would present it to me, but they saw him holding the hairpin and walking straight up to Ruo Qingyan. He said gently,
"This hairpin matches your dress today very well."
With that, he actually handed it directly to Ruo Qingyan. Ruo Qingyan was overwhelmed by the unexpected favor and waved her hands repeatedly in refusal, but Wen Hengyu stuffed it into her hand anyway, only then turning back to face me, his smile remaining as gentle as ever.
"Your Highness, this hairpin has a slight flaw in its craftsmanship. It is not worthy of your Highness. In the future, I will surely find an even better one to present to your Highness."
I looked at him, my heart completely untroubled by any emotion. I knew that from the very beginning, he had never intended to give this hairpin to me. The so-called flaw was merely a clumsy excuse. In the afternoon, everyone boarded the pleasure boat to tour the lake. Ruo Qingyan was eagerly waiting on us at the side. As she poured tea for me, her wrist accidentally shook, and the entire cup of hot tea splashed right onto the hem of my dress.
This servant deserves to die. Your Highness, there are spare clothes on the boat. Allow this servant to support you and go change.
Ruo Qingyan immediately knelt on the ground to beg for forgiveness, her voice trembling with tears. Not wanting to deal with her, I said coldly, "No need. This palace can go by herself."
Your Highness, please let this servant make amends for her mistake.
Ruo Qingyan was unusually persistent, even reaching out to support me with a force so strong it could not be refused. In the midst of the pushing and shoving, somehow, both of us gasped at the same time and tumbled over the railing into the lake together. With a loud splash, water sprayed everywhere. The moment I fell into the water, I clearly saw that those three men, without a moment's hesitation, like arrows released from a bow, all lunged toward Ruo Qingyan as she struggled and thrashed in the water. The icy lake water instantly engulfed my nose and mouth, and my heart sank to the very bottom. I struggled, water pouring into my lungs. As my consciousness gradually blurred, the last thing I saw was still those three men anxiously lifting Ruo Qingyan onto a small boat, with not a single one of them turning back to look at me. When I woke up again, I was on the familiar bed in the princess's manor. My trusted maid, her eyes red, was watching over me. Seeing me wake up, her tears fell even faster.
Princess, you are finally awake. You scared me to death. When both you and Ruo Qingyan fell into the water, the three lords all went to save Ruo Qingyan, leaving you to sink into the lake. In the end, it was the lake patrol guards who pulled you out. They went too far. You are the princess.
I stared at the canopy of the bed, my gaze hollow, my voice raspy yet calm. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I don't want them anymore either. Who does your highness not want? Right at that moment, Qi, Linyuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu walked in. They happened to catch that last sentence. I closed my eyes, not wanting to look at them. The three exchanged glances and stepped forward, beginning their practiced routine of comforting me.
Please appease your anger, your highness. The situation was extremely critical at the time, and the figures on the lake were in complete confusion. In our haste and anxiety, we mistook Qingyan for your highness. That is why.
Mistook her for me, yet again. I sneered in my heart. Mistaken the first time, mistaken the second time, mistaken every single time. When making excuses, were they really too lazy to even change up the story? Seeing that I remained silent, the three assumed I was still angry and tried all sorts of ways to coax me. One day they brought bright pearls from the eastern sea. The next day they presented rare treasures from the western regions, and the day after that, rare and ancient books. They even pushed aside all their urgent official duties to keep watch at the princess's manor day and night, under the pretext of caring for your highness until you are fully recovered. For a time, tales once again spread through the capital about how the three lords have deep, sea-like affection for the princess, becoming fiercely protective of their beautiful lady and meticulously tending to her by her sick bed. Only I knew that they stayed at the princess's manor, mainly because it made it more convenient to see Ruo Qingyan, who who was also resting there after being frightened. My trusted maid quietly informed me that the supplements and rare toys the three sent to Ruo Qingyan were actually more than what was delivered to me, and they went to visit and console her in person every single day. Hearing this, I only nodded indifferently, already planning a different matter in my mind. According to the traditions of our dynasty, before a princess's grand wedding, a group of older maids or those wishing to leave the palace would be released to marry on their own, as a way to pray for the princess's blessings. I decided that this time, I would return Ruo Qingyan's indenture contract to her and send her out of the manor. I summoned Ruo Qingyan and handed her the indenture contract. Qingyan, you have been by my side for many years, and you have reached the appropriate age. Since we are releasing maids from the manor this time, I am returning your indenture contract to you and giving you another 100 taels of silver. Leave the manor, find a marriage of your own, and live a good life. Upon hearing this, Ruo Qingyan looked as if she had heard something terrifying. With a thud, she fell to her knees, her tears falling like rain.
Your Highness, this servant does not want to leave the manor. This servant wants to stay by your Highness's side and serve you for a lifetime. I beg your Highness not to drive this servant away. The free status that others yearn for in vain. Why do you not want it? This servant cannot bear to part with your Highness.
I did not care to say more to her and placed the indenture contract and the banknote on the table. The banknote and the indenture contract are here. Conduct yourself well. Having said that, I turned around and left. However, not long after, a maid ran over in a state of panic.
Princess, this is terrible. Ruo Qingyan has hanged herself.
Startled, I hurried to the servants' quarters. Just as I reached the door, I heard suppressed sobbing and a man's anxious questioning coming from inside.
Qingyan, why would you do such a foolish thing?
It was Xilin Yuan's voice. I heard Ruo Qingyan weeping miserably, her voice weak as a thread.
The princess, she is forcing me out of the manor. She wants to marry me off as a concubine to that 60-year-old butcher in the west of the city. I refuse to suffer such humiliation. My only choice is to die.
My footsteps froze instantly. Blood rushed to my head in an instant. She actually slandered me again. Just as I was about to push the door open to explain, Xilin Yuan's furious voice echoed from inside.
How dare she force you like this? I'll go kill her right now.
Lin Yuan, you mustn't. She is a princess after all.
Xiao Jingheng's voice rang out. Wen Hengyu also advised.
Killing a princess is a capital crime. However, we can teach her a lesson by other means. She must pay the price for her actions today.
The rest of the conversation gradually faded. I couldn't hear it clearly, only feeling a chill creep up from the soles of my feet. Although I didn't believe they would actually dare to kill me. Just to be safe, I immediately deployed more guards in secret to protect myself. However, no matter how much one guards against outside threats, it is hardest to guard against thieves within the house. That night, after I drank the lotus seed soup delivered from the small kitchen, my head began to spin, and I completely lost consciousness. I didn't know how much time had passed. When I woke up to a strong, pungent scent of cosmetics, I found myself lying on a strange bed, draped with red gauze curtains. I was actually wearing nothing but a single thin layer of clothing. Could this be a brothel? In terror, I tried to sit up, but my entire body felt limp and powerless. Even lifting my arm was extremely difficult. I had been drugged with muscle-weakening powder. Right at that moment, voices came from outside the door.
Lord Shi, Lord Xiao, Lord Wen, for you to sell Her Highness to a place like this? Isn't it a bit inappropriate?
It was Ruo Qingyan's timid, hypocritical voice.
Qingyan, you are too kind. She is so malicious that she wanted to marry you off to a butcher to humiliate you, yet you are still speaking up for her. An arrogant, domineering, and viper-hearted person like her deserves to be taught a lesson, so she can also taste what it is like to be demeaned and left at the mercy of others.
Xilin Yuan's cold voice rang out. I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cave, and the blood in my entire body froze. How dare they? How dare they sell me into a brothel? Fear seized me. I struggled desperately to roll off the bed and used all my strength to crawl toward the door. Just as I reached the door, it was pushed open from the outside. A heavily made-up, obese madam walked in. Seeing me trying to escape, her eyebrows instantly knit with anger.
Well, what an insolent girl. I spent a fortune to buy you. And you still dare to run away? You still dare to run away? Someone, come here. Beat her.
Let go of me. Do you know who I am? I am the princess of the dynasty. I screamed at the top of my lungs. The madam sneered and slapped me across the face.
Bah, you are a princess. Then I am the empress. Beat her. Beat her hard.
Fists and kicks rained down on me like a torrent. I curled into a ball in excruciating pain. Soon, I was bound hand and foot with a cloth stuffed in my mouth and dragged onto a brightly lit, extremely noisy high stage. The area below the stage was packed with all kinds of men. Someone recognized me and let out a gasp.
Isn't that Princess Yuning?
Gentlemen, you must be joking. Her Highness is of noble birth. How could she ever come to my humble place? This girl just happened to be blessed with luck, having a face that looks 80% like the princess. So, her starting bid tonight must naturally be a bit more expensive, starting at 1,000 tiles of gold.
The madam stood on the stage, hands on her hips, laughing out loud. The crowd below instantly burst into an uproar. Immediately, all kinds of greedy and malicious gazes fell upon me. In the end, a bloated, turbid-eyed, middle-aged wealthy merchant bought me at a high price. Being dragged into the room, watching that merchant approaching with a grin. Out of utter despair, I burst forth with my last shred of strength, slamming violently against the corner of the table nearby. The fruit knife on the table fell to the ground at the impact. I seized the opportunity to grab the knife and stabbed it hard into the merchant's thigh. While the merchant screamed and collapsed to the floor, I stumbled and rushed to the window. Jumping down without any hesitation, my body slammed heavily onto the cold ground. Intense pain washed over me. Before I could even catch my breath, a carriage came speeding toward me. There was absolutely no time to dodge. Thud. I was sent flying by the impact and completely lost consciousness. When I regained consciousness again, I heard people talking beside me. It was the voices of Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu, carrying a hint of dissatisfaction.
Lin Yuan, why did you have to hit her with the carriage?
If she had just behaved obediently and not run away, why would it have come to this? Since she refuses to behave, she deserves to suffer some physical pain.
Shi Linyuan's voice was cold, devoid of any warmth. So, even this accident was part of their calculations. Learning the truth felt like a bolt from the blue, but seeing that I had woken up, the three of them instantly put on expressions of worry and heartache.
Your Highness, you're awake. We were worried to death. How did you end up in a place like that? How dare those ruffians treat you like that?
Rest assured, Your Highness, those mobsters and thugs who mistreated you, we have already dealt with them all. We will never let word of this leak out, or let your reputation be tarnished.
Looking at them like this, my heart was filled with immense pain. Yet, I gritted my teeth, not wanting to say a single word. Just endure a little longer. As long as I can endure, until the coming-of-age banquet, I will endure no more. Over the next few days, I stayed highly on guard, never letting Ruo Qingyan get within half a step of me again. The three of them were quite considerate though. Seeing Ruo Qingyan suffering grievances in the princess's manor, they simply took her out of the manor to have fun and cheer her up. My maid told me this with indignation, but I only smiled coldly, not caring in the least. On the eve of my coming-of-age ceremony, Shi Linyuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu came once again. On the pretext of paying their respects, they were actually testing me.
Your Highness, tomorrow is your coming-of-age ceremony. We wonder in your heart, who do you actually favor?
Wen Hengyu's smile was gentle, but a trace of hard-to-detect nervousness was hidden deep in his eyes. I looked at them, my heart completely untroubled, and dismissed them with the same old words. What is the rush? When the time comes, you will naturally find out. At last, the day of my coming-of-age ceremony quickly arrived. The imperial palace was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, grand and extraordinary. The nobility of the capital and all the civil and military officials gathered together, their eyes focused on today's protagonist, me. Everyone was talking among themselves, speculating on the choice for the consort. It must be Grand Secretary Shi. With his immense power, he matches the princess best. I think it is the young marquis. He is upright, handsome, and has great military achievements. The heir of Wen is also good. He is gentle as jade and brimming with talent. Meanwhile, the three men being discussed did not look very pleased. Their attention was not on the upcoming selection of the consort at all. Instead, they gathered around Ruo Qingyan in the corner, comforting her in soft, gentle voices.
Qingyan, no matter whom Her Highness chooses today, our hearts for you will never change.
That is right. Indeed. The other two will surely protect you for life like elder brothers.
Dressed in my splendid ceremonial robes, I slowly walked toward them. Seeing this, the three of them instantly reacted as if facing a formidable enemy. Subconsciously, they shielded Ruo Qingyan even tighter, watching me with vigilance. Shi Linyuan took the lead to speak, his tone stiff.
Does your highness need something? Qingyan, go fetch your highness's cloud-patterned cloak.
He was actually sending Ruo Qingyan away directly. I sneered in my heart and stopped walking. I took out a document from my sleeve and held it up high. It was precisely Ruo Qingyan's indenture contract. Everyone was stunned, not understanding understanding what was happening. My voice was clear and resonant, echoing all around. Ruo Qingyan, step forward and receive my order. Not knowing what was happening, Ruo Qingyan stepped forward timidly and knelt down. According to the laws of our dynasty, before a princess marries, a group of handmaids are released from the estate to marry on their own. This palace has already given you your deed of indenture once before, along with a banknote of 100 taels of silver. I have never forced you to marry anyone. Today, for the second and final time, this palace grants you your deed of indenture. You are now a free person, free to marry whom you wish, and you no longer have any association with the princess's manor, nor are you ever to step foot inside the princess's manor again for any reason. Hearing this, the three men immediately looked at Ruo Qingyan in shock.
Is this true? Then why did you say before that the princess was going to marry you off to an old widower?
Ruo Qingyan instantly panicked. Her face turned deathly pale, and her tears began to flow instantly. She kowtowed repeatedly, crying,
It is this servant's fault. It is because this servant did not want to leave the princess and could not bear to part with your highness that I lied. This servant deserves 10,000 deaths. Please punish me, your highness. I beg the three lords to understand. This servant only wanted to stay by her highness's side and serve her forever.
She wept pitifully, looking like a pear blossom bathed in rain, and looked utterly pitiful. The expressions of the three men shifted. Although there was surprise in their eyes as they looked at her, it was mostly replaced by heartache. Xi Linyuan was the first to bend down and support her.
For Lady Qingyan to be so loyal to the princess is truly rare and admirable.
Xiao Jingheng could not help but step forward as well, a trace of pity appearing on his upright face.
But you must also consider your own future. You cannot remain a handmaid for the rest of your life.
Indeed, you should have a life of your own.
Lord Wenheng let out a soft sigh, his gentle voice laced with heartache. Just as Ruo Qingyan was about to speak further, I cut her off with a cold voice. Enough. I looked down at Ruo Qingyan from above, my voice calm yet brooking no argument. Today, this deed of indenture, you must take it whether you want to or not. From this day forward, you have nothing to do with the princess's manor anymore. You are free to marry as you wish, and you shall never step foot into the princess's manor again. Ruo Qingyan trembled all over, a flash of venomous malice crossing her eyes, which was quickly masked by tears again. She reached out her hand tremblingly, only to shrink it back again, looking as if she did not dare to accept it. Seeing this, Xi Linyuan stepped straight forward to take the deed. On behalf of Qingyan, I thank your highness for your grace. Right at this moment, the shrill voice of a eunuch echoed from outside the hall.
The auspicious hour has arrived. The coming of age ceremony begins.
The ceremonial music started playing. I turned and walked toward the center of the hall, my grand robes trailing behind me and my jade pendants tinkling softly. Every step I took was steady and dignified. As the ceremony concluded, the old eunuch bowed and said,
According to ancestral custom, let the lords present their gifts in turn. Should any gift find favor with her highness, she will accept it, and an imperial decree will declare him the prince consort.
Everyone's eyes gleamed with anticipation, all of them looking toward Xi, Xiao, and Wen. Biting the bullet, the three stepped forward in turn to present their gifts. Xi Linyuan was the first to step forward. His brow was furrowed tight, his face filled with reluctance, yet he still held up a red sandalwood casket.
10 hue of South Sea pearls.
To congratulate your highness on your coming of age. Thank you for your generous gift, Lord Xi. This palace accepts your kind intention. I sat regally in my high seat, not even lifting my eyelids. Xi Linyuan's pupils contracted slightly. He had originally thought I would definitely choose him. To be rejected in public at this moment. A sudden, inexplicable tightness welled up in his chest. Xiao Jingheng stepped forward next, unrolling a picture scroll.
Painted with a northern border snow wolf hairbrush, the map of the thousand-line landscape. I hope your highness will kindly accept it.
Lord Xiao is most thoughtful. I still did not accept it, only saying, indifferently. Xiao Jingheng's expression stiffened, his hand holding the scroll trembling slightly. That painting was one he had stayed up for 3 whole months, painstakingly drawing, stroke by stroke. The heir of Prince Wenheng was the last to step forward with a gentle and refined smile.
A warm jade chessboard, a tribute from the western regions. I hope your highness likes it.
You are too polite, Heir Wen, but I shall not accept the gift. I still refuse. The three of them exchanged looks, their eyes filled with disbelief. The entire court was in an uproar, as whispers and murmurs broke out everywhere. The princess didn't choose a single one. These three are the most outstanding young men in the capital. Could it be that the princess has someone else in her heart? Before the discussions could settle, the orderly clanking of armor suddenly suddenly came from outside the hall. The guards announced in a loud voice, Gu Jinyan, the young general who guards the north, has arrived. Hearing Gu Jinyan's name, the corners of my mouth curled up slightly. Xiao Jingheng turned back in confusion.
Gu Jinyan? Isn't he thousands of miles away from here? How did he make it back? He probably came back specifically to mock us. The princess actually didn't choose a single person.
Shi Linyuan let out a cold laugh. Although Wen Heng still maintained his appearance of a gentle gentleman, his brow also furrowed slightly.
Perhaps the princess has her own considerations. Let us wait a bit more patiently.
Under everyone's watchful eyes, Gu Jinyan, who had rushed over on horseback, stopped in front of the palace. He walked up to me and flashed a wild, teasing smile.
I heard outside that your highness didn't choose anyone's gift. Could it be that you already have someone in your heart?
Only Gu Jinyan would dare to make such a playful remark. He had been my rival since childhood. Relying on his family's generations of military service, Gu Jinyan frequently came into the palace. One day he would tear my kite, and the next day he would steal my hairpin, provoking me so much that I forgot my royal composure and complained about him endlessly. I even said that even if all the good men in the world died, I would never marry someone like Gu Jinyan. In my past life, caught up in the indifference of Xiao, Shi, and Wen, I had never truly sought to understand Gu Jinyan's feelings. Now, living this life over again, I recalled that every time Gu Jinyan tore my kite in our childhood, he would help me fly it even higher. And when he stole my hairpin, he would secretly deliver a much more finely crafted one in the middle of the night. Not to mention all those laughable pranks. Looking back now, were they not his youthful, awkward ways of showing affection? He never missed my birthday celebrations year after year, and the gifts he brought every year were one-of-a-kind treasures. Aside from me, Gu Jinyan had never associated with any other woman. Thinking of these things, I looked at Gu Jinyan's seemingly relaxed, yet actually tense expression, and nodded gently. That is correct. I indeed already have someone in my heart. I wonder, General Gu, since you rushed all this way, what gift do you intend to present to me? In truth, I had known all along, but in my past life, because I was choosing a husband, I did not accept the item Gu Jinyan offered. Sure enough, Gu Jinyan's Adam's apple bobbed before he drew a jade pendant from his robes.
Since your highness can only accept a gift from the one in your heart, I will just use this as your highness's coming of age gift. It is just something I bought on a whim on my way here.
The jade pendant was clear and translucent, its red tassels swaying gently. One could tell at a glance that it wasn't just some random purchase. Unfortunately, in my past life, I believed Gu Jinyan's words and laughingly returned it to him. Only later did I find out that it was an heirloom of the Gu family, meant only for the one they loved. Gu Jinyan had already offered his heart to me. I just didn't know it back then. Fortunately, I have a second chance now. My smile widened. General Gu is most thoughtful. Then I shall accept it. In an instant, not only was Gu Jinyan stunned in place with surprise, but even those three could not help but speak up. The first to object was Si Lin Yuan.
Your Highness, today is the day you choose your consort. You cannot accept gifts so casually.
Grand Secretary Shi is right. Today is no laughing matter. Your Highness, please return General Gu's gift at once.
Xiao Jingheng secretly clenched his fists. Wen Hengyu stared intently at the quality of the jade pendant, smiling through gritted teeth.
If your highness likes jade pendants, I can also find another gift to present to your highness.
Silence. Now, announce the imperial decree and name the consort. My smile faded, and I spoke with authority. Receiving the command, the eunuch produced the imperial decree I had written beforehand and read the decision aloud. Whether it was Shi Lin Yuan, Xiao Jingheng, or Wen Hengyu, they all grew tense and knelt on one knee. Only Ruo Qingyan watched all of this in astonishment. Only after being nudged by someone else did she hurriedly kneel down, yet her eyes never wavered from the imperial decree. I noticed Ruo Qingyan's expression and felt a sense of doubt, but on second thought, no matter what, they would no longer be master and servant, and Ruo Qingyan would not remain by my side. After today, there would probably be no more chance to meet again, so I suppressed the doubt in my heart. The eunuch's shrill voice reached everyone's ears.
Gu Jinyan, young general of Zhenbei, has known the princess for many years. He has achieved great military merits at a young age and is hereby designated as the prince consort. Receive the decree.
As soon as these words were spoken, the entire venue fell dead silent. Everyone was filled with utter astonishment. Who in the capital didn't know that Gu Jinyan was my sworn enemy? The two of us had fought from childhood to adulthood. How could he be announced as the prince consort? With a loud clatter, Ruo Qingyan turned pale, and the teacup in her hand shattered on the floor. But no one noticed the sound, as all attention was focused on the imperial decree. Shi Lin Yuan was the most impulsive. With a dark and gloomy expression, he suddenly stood up.
Your Highness, the imperial decree is bestowed by the emperor. How can you act so recklessly? Who doesn't doesn't know that Gu Jinyan is your sworn enemy. How could the beloved in your heart possibly be him? Stop fooling around. I know the name on it is mine. You may just announce it. I will obey the decree and marry you.
Your Highness, Grand Secretary Shi speaks the truth. The three of us have already promised you that no matter who you choose, we will obey the decree and become your prince consort. Why must you play such a joke and humiliate your own dignity? Indeed, your Highness, hurry and re-announce which of the three of us is the prince consort.
Gu Jinyan still seemed unable to believe it. Without saying another word, I twitched the corner of my mouth. These three men, clearly none of them want to be the consort, yet they cannot accept that the consort is not one of them. How contradictory. Unfortunately, in this lifetime, I have long understood who I am truly meant to walk toward. I tossed the imperial decree over. This is something Her Highness decided long ago. It is not a joke. The consort Her Highness has chosen is General Gu Jinyan. Jinyan, why don't you step forward and take Her Highness back? Saying this, I turn my head. The bright yellow imperial decree rolls to Shi Linyuan's feet. He picks it up, only to see that the name written on it is indeed Gu Jinyan. A massive sense of absurdity washes over him. How could the person I love be Gu Jinyan? The person I love should clearly be, should be. His face turns grim. Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu step forward. Seeing the name on the imperial decree clearly, they are equally bewildered. In their eyes, the person I have always loved is them. How could it possibly be Gu Jinyan, whom I have detested since childhood? But the imperial decree cannot be defied. When the three of them look up again, Gu Jinyan has already stepped forward, lifting me onto his horse. With a crack of the whip, the two of them have already galloped out of the city. Their silhouettes blend together, looking like a deeply loving couple. Shi Linyuan is the least able to control his temper. He looks up, glaring intently at the eunuch who read the imperial decree.
Did you play some tricks? How could the princess possibly choose Gu Jinyan? Does the emperor know about this? You have some nerve.
As he speaks, he actually intends to arrest the eunuch from the palace for interrogation, forcing him to admit that the imperial decree is wrong. Xiao Jingheng glanced over.
I also feel there is a mistake. The three of us have always shared a deep bond with the princess and have adored her for many years. How could the princess not know this? Something must have gone wrong in this process. You had better confess the truth, eunuch.
Although Wen Hengyu did not speak, he did not deny it either. Just as Xiao Jingheng had said, I shared a deep bond with them, so how could I not choose any of the three of them? Seeing this, the eunuch recalled what he had heard about Shi Linyuan's temperament, yet he never expected him to dare question even an imperial decree. He immediately let out a cold snort.
If you gentlemen have any doubts, feel free to ask His Majesty. This servant would not dare shoulder such a grave accusation.
With that, the eunuch walked away right under Shi Linyuan's nose. Even though Shi Linyuan clenched his fists in anger, he did not dare to actually lay a hand on someone from the palace without any concrete evidence. Wen Hengyu offered timely comfort.
Don't be anxious. He is right. We will know the truth once we ask His Majesty. It was His Majesty who chose the three of us in the first place. The princess would not defy the emperor's imperial decree.
Xiao Jingheng was already ordering men to prepare the horses, intending to head into the palace immediately. Just then, a delicate, weak voice spoke up.
My lords, if you have no other matters, Qingyan will take her leave first. The princess has gone with General Gu, and this servant must go along to attend to her.
As Ruo Qingyan stood there timidly, the three men finally remembered she was still by their side, and embarrassment instantly washed over their faces.
Qingyan, don't misunderstand. The only one we love is you. It is just that this matter is highly unusual. If it isn't resolved, the princess will surely use this as an excuse to cause trouble again in the future,
leaving us no peace. That is why we are in such a hurry.
Indeed, she has always had such an outrageous personality. Besides, you don't need to stay by the princess's side anymore. Your indenture contract has already been retrieved. I have a property in Jiangnan. How about you settle down there first?
Wen Hengyu looked at her with pity and affection, but Ruo Qingyan shook her head, her face pale.
No, I cannot leave the princess. I have served her for so many years. If I leave her, what will she do without someone capable by her side? Qingyan must return to the princess. Once you, my lords, have resolved this matter, if fate allows, we will surely meet again.
Ignoring the three men's attempts to stop her, she ran straight out. Even on Shi Linyuan's face, a look of deep emotion appeared.
Miss Qingyan is truly so kind, yet the princess has bullied her time and again. Once this matter is resolved, I will make sure the princess apologizes to Qingyan in person. Fortunately, we agreed long ago that even if the princess chose us, we would protect Miss Qingyan for the rest of our lives. If we cannot give her status, we will give her all our love. In the future, even if Miss Qingyan faces danger, even at the cost of my life, I will protect her.
They did not know that everything they said had already come to pass in their previous lives. They waited until Ruo Qingyan's figure was completely out of sight, and the horses Xiao Jingheng had ordered were brought over. Only then did the three reluctantly avert their gaze, intending to head to the palace to ask the emperor for clarification. On the other side, Gu Jinyan rode his horse all the way, bringing me to the Gu residence. As he dismounted, he looked at the person before him and couldn't help but speak.
Am I dreaming? Your Highness actually chose me to be your consort. Could it be that one of those three made you unhappy? So you're using me just to spite him?
He tried his best to use a playful, teasing tone, not wanting to expose his own bitterness, but I had already seen right through him. I took out that jade pendant. If I remember correctly, this is supposed to be passed down through generations of the Jiu family to their wives, symbolizing the Gu family's unwavering loyalty to their wives and their never-ending love. Jinyan, is this what you called a casual gift you bought for me on a whim? Gu Jinyan was astonished, not expecting me to actually know about this. Immediately after, this young general's face flushed red, with none of his usual clever bickering self left in him. He spoke in a low, muffled voice.
You knew all along, yet you still accepted my gift. Do you know that once this gift is given away, it is impossible to ever take it back? I know your Highness is joking. Tomorrow, when they come looking for you, I will take you back.
Clearly, he loved me more deeply than anyone else, yet he was simply unwilling to speak up, making me wait a lifetime in my past life, only to discover his true feelings after my death. In this lifetime, I would not allow Gu Jinyan to keep playing the role of my rival. My expression turned slightly serious. What if I said, the one in my heart really is you? If you are unwilling, then I will grant them their wish, change the imperial decree, and absolutely not make things difficult for you. But if you are willing to be my consort, then choose a day to marry me. Seeing that I didn't seem to be joking, Gu Jinyan's expression gradually failed to hide his excitement. He suddenly picked me up. His arms, trained for years in the northern city, were firm and strong, and his face finally broke into his usual carefree smile.
Then I shall respectfully accept your command. Even if you say today was a joke in the future, I will never let you go again. Yuning.
No longer a false promise from my past life. This time, I can truly feel Gu Jinyan's sincerity. I hold him tightly, feeling grateful that I had finally made the right choice. Except, I clenched my fingers. In my past life, not many years after I married, the enemy army was at the gates. To protect the people of the city, I had no choice but to die for my country. This time, even though I chose the person who truly loves me, I might still not escape the fate of dying for my country. But with Gu Jinyan, if the enemy forces invade, I will definitely not let him die with me this time. A man like him deserves to live a good, long life. Perhaps noticing my gaze, Gu Jinyan suddenly turned his head.
Yuning, what are you thinking about? Why do you keep staring at me? Don't tell me you already want to consummate our marriage right now.
His smile, causing my face to blush a deep red with embarrassment. Unless we are married, consummating anything is out of the question. How are you still so smooth-tongued after all these years?
Don't worry. Since it is you, Princess, I will immediately submit a petition to His Majesty. I want the whole world to know that Yuning has chosen me to be her consort.
His eyes softened with tenderness, and he immediately ordered his servants to prepare the wedding essentials, while also sending a letter straight to the imperial palace, specifically informing the emperor that his wedding date with the princess had been set, and promising that he would never fail the princess in this lifetime. Inside the hall of mental cultivation, it was bustling with noise. Shi, Lin Yuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Prince Wenheng had all arrived. Due to their status, the emperor excused them from formal salutations and told them to state their business directly. Shi Lin Yuan took a step forward.
Your Majesty, you previously said yourself, the consort chosen for the princess would be among the three of us. Now, the princess has chosen Gu Jinyan. I know I had some misunderstandings with the princess before, which made her unhappy, but the princess shouldn't act so willfully.
Everyone in the capital knows our feelings for the princess. She has always been jealous of Qingyan, and we have tolerated it time and again. But this joke is simply too much. Please make a decision, Your Majesty, and tell the world who the princess's true consort is.
Xiao Jingheng's voice was also cold. Wen Hengyu smiled softly.
As long as your majesty speaks, we won't mind what the princess did. We will certainly treat the princess well and never let her suffer the slightest grievance. As for Miss Qingyan, the princess has always had a misunderstanding. Miss Qingyan once saved the lives of the three of us from a sea of fire. We are merely looking after our savior.
Wen Hengyu's words made Shi Linyuan and Xiao Jingheng nod in agreement. Hearing the whole story, the emperor looked puzzled.
We did say that in the capital, the three of you were the most suitable to be the consort, but the princess insisted on choosing, for herself. So we let her have her way. Did she not tell you about this? Gu Jinyan is the one the princess wanted to choose.
Hearing this, all three showed expressions of disbelief. Before they could react, the emperor's words shocked them even more.
Furthermore, regarding the fire back then, it was clearly Yuning who saved you. How did it become some Qingyan?
Their eyes widened. Shi Linyuan immediately spoke up.
How is that possible? When we woke up, it was Miss Qingyan taking care of us by our side. Other than her, who else could it be? There was no sign of the princess at all.
I still remember the anxious expression on Miss Qingyan's face the moment I woke up. She said she almost suffocated in the fire to save us. How could it possibly be false? Only by saving us herself could she know so many details. It must be Lady Qingyan. There is no mistake.
Prince Wenheng no longer wore his gentle, jade-like expression. His face was filled with deep unease. So you already knew what happened, So you all thought someone else saved you back then.
How ridiculous. A grand secretary, a prince, and a lord. You were actually spun right round by a single woman. And to think we once deemed you fit to be the prince consort. Looking at it now, thankfully, Yuning did not choose any of you. We cannot bear to look at you any longer.
Being scolded and dismissed, the three of them looked completely devastated. If His Majesty spoke the truth, and it was I who saved them back then over all these years, what on earth did their protection of Ruo Qingyan amount to? Shi Linyuan's face turned deathly pale.
This matter must be thoroughly investigated. How could Qingyan have lied to us?
He was unwilling to believe it, and the same was true for Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu. They each dispatched their men to investigate the fire from years ago. Before long, their subordinates returned one after another with news, but the truth was the absolute polar opposite of what they had imagined. It was all a lie by Ruo Qingyan. Back then, it was I who risked my own life to drag the three of them out of the fire, only because my injuries were too severe. I had to seek medical treatment first, leaving Ruo Qingyan behind to look after them. This led them to mistakenly believe upon waking that this maidservant had saved them, and Ruo Qingyan did not deny it. She simply claimed my credit as her own and became their savior. Shi Linyuan's expression turned frigid, wishing he could strangle Ruo Qingyan right then and there. How dared she tell such an outrageous lie, causing them to mistreat the princess again and again for her sake, to the point that the princess chose Gu Jinyan to be her prince consort and did not choose any of the three of them. No, it should be said that it was Ruo Qingyan's actions made the princess not choose him as her consort. The princess had clearly always loved him. If not for Ruo Qingyan, how could she not have chosen him? Xiao Jingheng's face also darkened, no one knowing what he was thinking, but his fists were clenched tightly, his face filled with regret and pain. Even Wen Hengyu, who had always maintained his composure, could not bring himself to smile at all under these circumstances. If not for Ruo Qingyan, how could I have rejected her gift? The three of them regretted in silence, each having only one thought at this moment, and that was to find me. To make everything clear, I had been with the three of them for so long. I must have chosen Gu Jinyan out of desperation. As long as they went together to beg the emperor to retract his decree, there would surely still be a turn of events. With no time to lose, the three of them immediately rushed to the Gu residence. But before they could knock on the door and enter, they saw the main gates of the Jiyu residence open, and a woman was pushed out, and standing inside the gate was precisely the person they had been longing for.
Your Highness.
Xiao Jingheng walked over quickly.
Marquis Xiao, why are you here?
The woman who had been kicked out spoke. Xiao Jingheng, finding the voice familiar, realized it was Ruo Qingyan. He furrowed his brows, subconsciously showing his disgust.
What are you doing here looking for Her Highness?
I came to serve the princess. I have followed Her Highness for so many years. How could I be so ungrateful as to just leave? This servant will belong to Her Highness for life.
As she spoke, she actually fell straight to her knees, kowtowing repeatedly in front of me.
I beg the princess not to drive me away. This servant can do anything. This servant only begs to stay by the princess's side.
She made quite a commotion, and after a few kowtows, her forehead was already flushed red. Combined with her pitiful expression, anyone who saw her would think she was deeply loyal. But to me, she was just a persistent nuisance. I simply couldn't understand it. I clearly already gave her back her deed of indenture and money. Why did Ruo Qingyan still have to come back? Is being a servant by my side really that wonderful? Just as I was about to refuse, Shi Linyuan walked over. He grabbed Ruo Qingyan by the wrist and yanked her up with force.
Can't you see Her Highness doesn't want you serving her? If you're eyes are of no use. I can gouge them out for you.
Ruo Qingyan trembled with fear. She hadn't expected Shi Linyuan to speak to her with such sinister malice. Her tears fell even more profusely.
Grand Secretary Shi, it is my fault. I only wanted to stay by Her Highness's side. It was wishful thinking on my part.
Normally, the moment she said something like this, Shi Linyuan, Marquis Xiao Jingheng, and Prince Wen Hengyu would surely look heartbroken and demand justice for her, agreeing to absolutely anything. But today, not only did they remain completely indifferent, but their lips also twitched into a mocking sneer. Wen Hengyu spoke with utter disdain, without a shred of warmth in his eyes.
You've been lying for so long. It is about time you stopped. Lady Qingyan, you certainly know how to steal credit.
Heir apparent Wen, I don't understand what you mean. Did Qingyan do something wrong?
Ruo Qingyan's face turned pale, and she shrank back in fear. Shi Linyuan didn't care to waste words on her, the rage in his eyes burning intensely.
Still putting on an act? The one who saved us back then was clearly not you. It was Her Highness.
With a fling of his hand, Ruo Qingyan fell heavily to the ground. She let out a sharp cry of alarm. As her forehead struck the steps, instantly oozing blood, she subconsciously looked over with that pitiful expression, but not a single person present was moved by it anymore. Even when Hengyu, who was usually the most considerate and gentle, did not make a move. Only then did she realize that they already knew the truth about that matter. While she was trembling, Xiao Jingheng suddenly spoke up.
We cannot let her remain by Her Highness's side. This woman's mind is far too malicious. She will only bring harm to Her Highness. Lock her up at my place. My manor happens to be nearby.
Neither Shi Linyuan nor Wen Hengyu objected. After all, they currently had no energy to spare on Ruo Qingyan. But the moment Ruo Qingyan heard she would be taken away and separated from my side, she instantly panicked. More terrified than before, she kept begging for mercy and struggling.
No, I know I was wrong. I am willing to stay by the princess's side and serve her hand and foot for the rest of my life. I don't want to leave the princess. Your Highness, this servant has served you for so many years. Do you really have the heart to let me be taken away? This servant has only one wish, which is to stay by your Highness's side for the rest of my life.
She cried out loudly. This anomalous behavior left me completely baffled. Why was Ruo Qingyan so determined to stay by my side? She could clearly have gone elsewhere. Just the silver I left her would have been enough to ensure she wanted for nothing for the rest of her life. But no matter how much I thought, I couldn't make sense of it. There was also no way I would ever do what I did in my past life and keep Ruo Qingyan by my side. I watched coldly as Ruo Qingyan was dragged away by the guards. Just as I was about to close the main gates, I saw Ruo Qingyan's eyes suddenly light up, and she deliberately fell to the ground.
It hurts so much. Help me, General.
She looked up aggrievedly at the person walking toward them. It turned out to be Gu Jinyan. At this moment, I seemed to suddenly understand something. In my past life, whomever I chose would abandon me for Ruo Qingyan. This time, will Gu Jinyan make a similar choice? Even though I didn't want to believe Gu Jinyan was that kind of person, I couldn't help but feel my heart leap into my throat. Watching tensely, Gu Jinyan looked down. Naturally, he recognized Ruo Qingyan, only he didn't yet know what exactly she had done. To be dragged away by Xiao Jingheng's guards. But why would he speak up for a mere maid? If there really was something unfair going on, he knew I would have already protected my own person. Gu Jinyan ignored Ruo Qingyan. He walked straight past her and walked over to my side.
I have already received the Emperor's reply. Tomorrow, we shall wed.
He said gently. Ruo Qingyan's eyes widened in shock. She hadn't expected Gu Jinyan to walk right past her without a second glance. She shook her head, murmuring,
How is this possible? How can this be?
Hearing Gu Jinyan's words, Shi Linyuan rushed straight forward.
What did you say? You are marrying Her Highness tomorrow? I won't allow it.
I am the consort personally chosen by Her Highness. It is only right and proper for Her Highness to marry me. What right do you have to forbid it? Please stop gathering at the gates of my Gu Manor.
The banquet is not until tomorrow. Gu Jinyan glanced sideways as he spoke. With that, regardless of how grim their faces looked, Gu Jinyan shut the main gates directly, watching my figure disappear behind the gates. Before we could even exchange a word, Shi Linyuan desperately wanted to break in and take me away. Xiao Jingheng's gaze fell upon Ruo Qingyan. If not for her, how could things have turned out like this?
Take her back first. There are still many things I need to question her thoroughly about.
Lord Wenheng remained silent, his usually warm face extremely dark. The guards dragged Ruo Qingyan up again. The woman who had fallen to the ground suddenly snapped out of her daze and kept shouting my name, hoping I would give her another chance. Those agonizing, wretched screams could be heard clearly, even through the closed gates.
Your Highness, I beg of you. I know I was wrong. This servant is willing to serve you for the rest of my life. I only beg you to give me one more chance. Your Highness, do not drive me away. Your Highness, Jinyan only wants to stay by your side. Your Highness.
Her voice drifted further and further away. I looked uneasy. Just as I was about to speak, Ruo Qingyan's distorted voice pierced through the air, screaming directly inside my head. System, why did it turn out like this? I instinctively tightened my grip on Gu Jinyan's hand, suddenly feeling a sense of dread. What was a system? Did Ruo Qingyan really hide something from me? And why did that sentence appear in my head? Perhaps because so many things had happened lately. I froze on the spot, unable to stop myself from feeling terrified. It felt just like my past life, where I had chosen to marry each of them once, only to end up with that tragic fate anyway. My breathing grew rapid. I wanted to ask Gu Jinyan if he had heard that voice just now, yet I didn't dare to. I did not want to drag Gu Jinyan into this as well, but Gu Jinyan frowned first, pulling me into his embrace.
Yuning, did you hear something about a system just now?
Instantly, my unconscious trembling stopped. I looked up, with a glimmer of hope that I didn't even realize I had. You heard it too? Jinyan, did you really hear it too? Those words were so strange, but they also make me feel very uneasy. It feels like something bad is about to happen, like a drowning person finally grasping at a life-saving straw. I let down the very last of my guard beside Gu Jinyan and poured out everything I had experienced, down to the last detail. In my past life, I never realized Gu Jinyan's feelings for me. Among Shi, Lin Yuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu, I had married each of them once. Yet in the end, they all abandoned me for Ruo Qingyan. Finally, I leaped from the city wall. Then, as enemy forces pressed upon the city, Gu Jinyan fought to the death to repel them, only to carry my cold corpse and walk off the cliff. So, in this life, I chose him directly, solely to prevent everything from the past life from happening again. I sat by the bedside, revealing absolutely everything. These things had weighed on me for far too long. Now, I finally had a moment to breathe, allowing me to share the suffocating pain in my heart with someone else. Only after I finished speaking did I realize Gu Jinyan had gone silent at some point. Feeling self-conscious and awkward, I wanted to explain further, but was immediately pulled into a warm embrace.
Yuning, you've suffered so much.
His voice held nothing but sheer heartache. Heartache for the pain I suffered in my past life, and the anxieties of this one. Heartache for what I went through across 2 lifetimes. Heartache, too, that Shi, Xiao, and Wen had mistaken a speck of dust for a precious pearl, subjecting me to all kinds of humiliation. And most of all, heartache over the thought that if he had only made his feelings known sooner, could all of this have been avoided? Thinking of this, Gu Jinyan held me even tighter. The two of us shared each other's warmth, finding a sense of release within the room. Meanwhile, on the other side, Ruo Qingyan had already been locked in the basement by Xiao Jingheng. She was no longer the meek and subservient person she was in front of me. Instead, she paced back and forth in anger, muttering to herself constantly,
System, what on earth is going on? Didn't we agree that as long as I stayed by Zhang Yuni's side and absorbed her luck, every man around her would fall in love with me? Why didn't it work on that Gu Jinyan? And now Zhang Yuni has kicked me out. I can't get close to her anymore. How am I supposed to absorb her luck in the future? I was clearly so close to succeeding. Out of everyone Zhang Yuni could have chosen, she just had to pick that guy Gu Jinyan.
Ruo Qingyan cursed loudly. After she had been ranting for who knows how long, an electronic voice rang out of nowhere in the basement.
Host, according to our scans, the current Zhang Yuni has been reborn. In her past life, the host successfully stole her luck and became the female lead after Zhang Yuni died for her country. But now, Zhang Yuni's rebirth has changed everything.
What? She was actually reborn. No wonder she kept trying to kick me out. So she was reborn. But how? How could she be so lucky to experience something like that? How did she get so lucky?
Ruo Qingyan cried out in disbelief. Then, as if remembering something, she began to reminisce. Despite the pitch-black environment of the basement, Ruo Qingyan showed no fear at all, continuously discussing her plans with the system. But she didn't realize that the guards outside the door heard everything loud and clear. Faced with such bizarre words, and a voice appearing out of thin air, the guards immediately reported it to Xiao Jingheng. Xiao Jingheng originally didn't want to deal with this matter. He was in a hurry to find me. Tomorrow would be the day of my wedding to Gu Jinyan. He had to stop it no matter what. But what the guards reported was simply too absurd. How could there be another voice in the basement? He decided to take a look, just in case, just to be on the safe side.
Once we win the princess back, there is no way she can escape.
The 3 of them went to check together. To their surprise, what the guards said was true. Furthermore, it revealed another secret about Ruo Qingyan. It turned out she was a transmigrated player. After transmigrating into this world, she had to stay close to the female lead, which was me, and constantly absorb my luck. This would make all the men around her fall hopelessly in love with her. Ultimately, the moment my luck was completely drained and I died, she would become the female lead of this world, becoming the true chosen one of destiny. The three men stood frozen in shock. At the same time, hearing Ruo Qingyan mention the rebirth, a rush of unfamiliar memories suddenly surfaced in their minds. I first married Shi Linyuan, but on our wedding day, assassins attacked the palace, and he died saving my personal maid, Ruo Qingyan. Later, I remarried, choosing Xiao Jingheng. We encountered bandits during a spring outing, and he too took multiple stab wounds just to keep Ruo Qingyan safe. The third time, I married Wen Hengyu, but later on, he also broke into the enemy camp alone to save the kidnapped Ruo Qingyan. As thousands of arrows pierced his heart, his final gaze was still fixed on Ruo Qingyan. These horrifying memories felt as though they were suddenly forced into their brains, causing painful expressions to appear on the faces of all three men, as if they had actually experienced death once before. Inside the basement, Ruo Qingyan's cheerful voice rang out.
Oh right, system. You said I succeeded in my past life. Did those male leads all die as well?
That is correct. Xiao Jingheng died saving you from the bandits, and Wen Hengyu broke into the enemy camp for you as the male leads of this world. They all died because of you in the previous life. The luck you absorbed far exceeded that of other players, which is why you were exceptionally promoted to female lead in the end. As long as you create the same outcome in this life, you will become the chosen one of destiny in this world.
The system's cold voice was like a hammer, striking down ruthlessly on the heads of the three men. It turned out that the memories that had just flooded their minds were indeed from their past lives. In our past lives, I married each of them once. Only, they were all deceived by Ruo Qingyan. Not only did they die because of her schemes, but she also brought utter ruin upon me. Shi Linyuan's eyes turned dark and sinister. Just as he was about to charge straight inside, he was stopped by Wen Hengyu.
Don't kill her yet. The princess must be made aware of this. Once she understands that everything, from beginning to end, was Ruo Qingyan's doing, the princess will surely return to us. Tomorrow is the princess's grand wedding. This will make the perfect gift to send over.
I understand.
Shi Linyuan curled his lips into a smirk. With those words, he stepped into the basement. A look of pleasant surprise flared in Ruo Qingyan's eyes. She assumed Shi Linyuan had come to rescue her. To her dismay, the man's gaze was ice cold to the extreme. A cruel smile played at the corners of his lips.
A player trying to seduce us. I'd really like to see if a player like you is afraid of our methods of torture. Carry out the punishment.
How? How do you know about these things?
Ruo Qingyan's face instantly drained of color. Shi Linyuan did not bother to explain. He had never been one for useless words. But looking at the terror written across Ruo Qingyan's face, he let out a cold sneer.
Nothing remains hidden forever. Not only do I know you are some sort of player, but I also know you got every single one of us killed in our past life. All just so you could become the favorite of destiny. This time, I'd really like to see if you can still get your way.
He spoke through gritted teeth. Hearing such precise details, Ruo Qingyan realized that her conversation with the system had just been overheard. A guard stepped forward, holding a whip. At the sight of the thick, menacing whip, Ruo Qingyan was pale with fear, shuffling backward repeatedly. Whether in her past life, this life, or even before she transmigrated, she had never experienced this kind of punishment. Now, she was actually being punished by mere characters in a minor world. She bit her lip. Disregarding the others present, she frantically summoned the system.
System, get me out of here, quick. Take me somewhere else. Let me go find Jiang Yuning.
Shi Linyuan's brow furrowed. Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu, who had been waiting at the door, also walked in upon hearing Ruo Qingyan's words. Their faces were extremely solemn, but a few seconds later, the system's voice sounded callously.
Apologies, host. You do not have enough points. Please complete the mission as soon as possible to earn points. Currently, your favorability progress with the three male leads is only 10%.
10%? That is impossible. It was clearly at 80% when I checked yesterday. If it were 80%, I would definitely have enough points. Even if they found out the truth, the progress shouldn't have dropped this fast. System, did you make a mistake? System.
Ruo Qingyan screamed, but the system did not speak again. The guards stepped forward. Several burly men pinned her down. Only then did Ruo Qingyan feel true terror as she was brought closer and closer to that whip. Ruo Qingyan's lips trembled as she struggled desperately.
No, don't do this to me. You are just characters in a minor world. You can't do this to me. Ah.
Before she could finish her sentence, a whip struck her hard, making her scream. A bright red bloody welt immediately welled up, and she broke into a cold sweat from the intense pain. With her current progress level, she couldn't even afford to buy a single painkiller.
It seems you are completely out of options now.
A cruel smile curled at the corner of Shi Linyuan's mouth. Screams echoed through the basement. Ruo Qingyan kept crying out for help, but lacking enough points, she had no way to trade with the system. She could only endure the continuous whipping. In the end, she didn't even have the strength to struggle anymore. She lay flat on the ground, breathing weakly, covered in wounds from head to toe, blood-stained and bruised all over. But just this was not enough. I had suffered so much injustice because of Ruo Qingyan. How could a simple beating possibly make up for it? Xiao Jinghong ordered the severe torture to continue. To Ruo Qingyan, the agonizing sounds were like the whispers of demons. Crawling on her hands and knees, she backed away, crying and begging for mercy.
No, I beg of you. Please don't do this. I really know I was wrong. I will never steal your luck again. Please spare me just this once, okay? I'll give you whatever you want.
What I want? Xiao Jinghong paused. The only thing he wanted now was for me to change my mind. What he wanted was to go back to the very beginning, where he wouldn't be deceived by Ruo Qingyan again, but would treat me with complete devotion. If that were the case, would I have accepted his gift on that day and chosen him as my consort? He imagined me rejecting Shi Linyuan and Wen Hengyu at the coming-of-age ceremony, walking right up to him, smiling brightly as a young girl, and announcing to everyone that she already had a sweetheart. If only there were such a day. How wonderful would it be? He was dazed for a moment, and then quickly snapped out of his fantasy. The person I was going to marry now was Gu Jinyan, not him, and the culprit was the person right in front of him. Xiao Jinghong stopped listening to her pleas for mercy. With a wave of his hand, the guards continued the punishment without mercy. Shrill screams immediately echoed through the basement. Ruo Qingyan was on the verge of fainting, but at this moment, the three men, none of them were soft-hearted men. Even Lord Wen Hengyu, who always claimed he couldn't bear to see torture, watched her being punished without even blinking. Ruo Qingyan was tortured for a whole night, from whipping to severe interrogation, and finally, a bucket of cold water was poured over her. The wounds all over her body were too painful to bear, making her feel as if she were about to die. Outside, the sky had already brightened. The three men also walked out of the basement and looked in the direction of the Gu Manor. Over there, drums and gongs were already sounding, and a grand bridal procession marched grandly down the street, announcing today's joyful event to everyone in the capital. They had the guards tie Ruo Qingyan up and then walked toward the Gu Manor. By the time they arrived, the ceremony had not yet begun. There were only guests in the main hall. Seeing that it was Shi Linyuan, Xiao Jinghong, and Wen Hengyu, the guests began to gossip.
Why is it them? Didn't the princess choose none of the three of them before? They are surprisingly magnanimous now, to actually come to attend the wedding of the princess and the general. Wait, who is that woman they are dragging behind them? This is the princess's big day. It shouldn't involve any blood. I think these three lords are here to win back the princess. But the princess and General Gu are also a perfect match.
Shi Linyuan, Xiao Jinghong, and Wen Hengyu ignored everyone's discussions and instead walked to the door.
We have urgent matters and wish to see the princess.
Wen Hengyu spoke. The maid at the door blocked the way with difficulty.
Today is the princess's wedding. She is not seeing anyone. Perhaps you three lords could return in a couple of days.
No, we truly have an important matter. Please inform the princess and say that it is about Ruo Qingyan. The princess will surely understand.
Xiao Jinghong spoke in a firm, commanding tone. Faced with three noble gentlemen of high status, the maid did not dare block them further and could only enter the room to report the matter to me. Inside the room, I had just finished putting on my bridal headpiece. The red wedding gown made my entire complexion look exceptionally radiant. Knowing that it was Shi Linyuan and the other two, I had no intention of meeting them, but as soon as I heard them mention the name Ruo Qingyan, my heart leaped into my throat. Could it be that they had all found out too? My concern for Ruo Qingyan left me unable to sit by and do nothing. I did not dare risk my future with Gu Jinyan. However, the wedding ceremony was about to begin, and there was no time to waste. I bit my lower lip and had the maid convey a message, telling them to go and wait in the room, and that I would join them shortly. Having said that, I immediately arranged for another servant to find Gu Jinyan to tell him that I would definitely return before the ceremony, so he should not worry. Lifting the hem of my dress, dress. I hurriedly made my way to the room. Shi, Lin Yuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu had already been waiting for a long time. The moment they saw me enter, the eyes of all three men lit up. At this moment, I was stunningly beautiful. The bright red wedding gown, the exquisite headpiece, and the fine makeup, coupled with the way I ran while holding up my skirt, made me look like a celestial maiden descending to earth. This left them dazed for a moment. Before they remembered the actual business of today, Shi Lin Yuan walked over and offered me a supportive hand.
Be careful, Your Highness.
It is fine. You said you wanted to speak to me about something regarding Ruo Qingyan. Did you mean bringing her here? I do not take in unwanted people here. I pulled my hand back and looked down at the barely breathing Ruo Qingyan.
Of course not. It is because we have uncovered some hidden truths, Your Highness. We now know everything about the reincarnation.
Xiao Jingheng immediately explained. Xiao Jingheng spoke with firm conviction, without a single shred of hesitation, sending a jolt of shock through my heart. Could they really have found out about everything from our past lives? Before I could even speak, Shi Lin Yuan kicked Ruo Qingyan as she lay sprawled on the floor, his eyes filled with nothing but utter disgust.
Speak up and explain everything clearly to the princess. Do not dare to utter a single lie, or I have ways to make you wish you were dead.
Upon hearing Shi Lin Yuan's voice, Ruo Qingyan instinctively shook her head and whimpered, hurriedly babbling to me about the system and transmigration. After listening to her explanation, I finally understood everything. It turned out the reason Ruo Qingyan had desperately wanted to stay by my side was to exploit me, and not just me. Even Shi Lin Yuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu were all victims. All the accidental deaths in the previous life had been deliberately orchestrated by Ruo Qingyan. Had it not been for her, the course of this small world would have unfolded just as it did in the past life. After hesitating time and again, I would have chosen Shi Lin Yuan as my prince consort. Hearing all of this, I fell into a silent contemplation. Sensing my hesitation, Wen Hengyu spoke in a gentle, warm tone.
There is one more thing. Previously, we believed it was Ruo Qingyan who had saved us from the Sea of Fire, which is why we treated her as our savior all this time. Now we know that the one who saved us was actually you. Your Highness, please, give us a chance to make amends, won't you?
This was their true purpose all along. Whether it was Shi Lin Yuan, Xiao Jingheng, or Wen Hengyu, all of them were consumed by regret after losing me and discovering the truth. They regretted why they had so easily believed Ruo Qingyan's full of loopholes lies, and why they had even hurt me just to appease her, leaving them now with no choice but to watch helplessly as I donned my wedding dress to marry someone else. But fortunately, they still had a chance to redeem themselves. Seeing that I had not yet spoken, Shi Lin Yuan pursed his lips and took a warm, jade-like ring from his breast pocket.
Your Highness, this is my family's heirloom, and also a token of my affection. I hope Your Highness will accept it. I know I made mistakes before and made you sad, but I promise that Ruo Qingyan will never disturb us again, and I will never look at another soul. My heart holds only Your Highness.
The man, who was usually so terrible with words, had hands that trembled at this moment. Xiao Jingheng had also come prepared. On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, I had not accepted his gift, which he had minded for a very long time. Now, he finally had a second chance. He smiled and glanced at Shi Lin Yuan.
As if yours is the only family with an heirloom, but I wouldn't want Your Highness to wear something so old-fashioned. This was made by my own hands, using the finest jade. I hope the princess likes it.
As he spoke, he produced an exquisite box. Once opened, inside was an exceptionally dazzling hairpin. Finally, it was Wen Hengyu's turn. He naturally refused to be outdone. With a wave of his hand, he produced an official seal.
The Wen family's businesses span the entire land. To see this seal is to see the master of the Wen family. Princess, please accept this.
The three of them offered the finest things they possessed, hoping desperately that I would accept them. Yet, looking at these priceless treasures, I merely twitched the corner of my mouth. What are you three lords doing? My coming-of-age ceremony has long since passed. Even if these are wedding gifts, there is no need for them to be so precious.
Your Highness, we already know we were wrong. Please do not continue with this joke. We all know that your beloved is not Gu Jinyan, and that you are only doing this to make us angry.
Shi Lin Yuan's face stiffened. Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu were also helpless, as if I were still throwing a tantrum. It was truly laughable. I found it increasingly ironic. Across our past and present lives, the pain I had suffered was something they wanted to erase with a single, we know we were wrong. In our past lives, each one of them abandoned me for Ruo Qingyan, making me a princess, the laughingstock of the entire capital, causing me to spend half my life doubting if I was truly so worthless and believing that no one loved me, but instead loved Ruo Qingyan. In this life, they also resorted to all sorts of methods for Ruo Qingyan's sake. Can these things really be erased by a single, we know we were wrong? Even though I now know the truth and that it was all Ruo Qingyan's deliberate doing, it is still impossible for me to accept them again. I stepped back coldly. I have said this many times. I am not joking. The person I like is Gu Jinyan.
Impossible. The person you like is clearly me. In our past life, you also chose me first. Yuning, have you forgotten?
In his anxiety, Shi Linyuan blurted out an intimate form of address. Although Xiao Jingheng did not want me to marry Gu Jinyan, he did not want me to marry Shi Linyuan either. He wanted it to be himself even more. The events of our past life were still vivid in his mind after he married me. Although he was somewhat cold to me because of Ruo Qingyan, I never cared. Instead, I considered his needs in every matter. My eyes filled with hope and love. How long had it been since he last saw that look? Xiao Jingheng said in a deep voice.
Yuning, although our marriage in our past life was brief, I did not treat you badly. Can we try again? This time, without Ruo Qingyan intervening. I won't let you be sad again.
Yuning, me too. Now that Ruo Qingyan's charm system isn't at work, you are the only one in my heart. Let me make it up to you this once.
Wen Hengyu's voice at this moment was gentler than usual. Facing all of this, my heart remained completely untroubled. Some things cannot be easily forgotten, and some people cannot be easily erased either. My mind held only the image of Gu Jinyan holding me as he walked step by step toward the cliff. If someone truly loved me, I believe no one could ever compare to Gu Jinyan. I glanced at the time. The time for the wedding ceremony was drawing near. I couldn't keep Gu Jinyan waiting for too long. I pushed away the gift that was presented to me. I don't need your compensation. I already have someone who will love me for a lifetime. He is still waiting for me. I don't want to make him wait long and worry. As for you guys, right now, I don't care about my past life. I only want that from this day forward. We will never have anything to do with each other again. That is enough. As for Ruo Qingyan, you can deal with her however you please. I never want to see her again. After saying this, I didn't give them another single glance, and just like how I arrived, I hurriedly rushed back to the main hall. Fortunately, I wasn't late. The time for the ceremony hasn't arrived yet. I let out a sigh of relief and slowed my pace. The moment Gu Jinyan saw me, he walked straight over to me. Is everything taken care of? He asked in a lowered voice, his face filled with concern. Every single time, I can feel Gu Jinyan's deep care for me. It warms my heart. The slight displeasure I felt earlier has completely vanished. I smile and nod. That is right. Everything has been handled. Let's go inside. The auspicious hour is also approaching.
All right, watch your step.
Gu Jinyan took my hand. The two of us stepped onto the red carpet, slowly walking toward the main hall. As we passed by the guests, their voices of praise could be heard. Only Shi Linyuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu, the three of them, watched this scene with immense regret and resentment. Previously, every single one of them had hoped that the person chosen to be my consort wouldn't be themselves, so they could continue to care for Ruo Qingyan. But now, staring at that radiant and lively figure, they finally realized that all along, the one they truly loved was me. I was dazzling, breathtaking, and worthy of everyone's love, yet they were the ones who had thrown away their own chance. Watching Gu Jinyan and me performing our wedding vows, Shi Linyuan felt a suffocating tightness in his chest. He turned and walked away. Wen Hengyu instinctively reached out to grab him, but was stopped by Xiao Jingheng.
Forget it. Let him go. Don't you know what his temper is like by now? If he keeps watching, he might end up tearing this whole place apart. And if he actually does that, Her Highness will likely never see him again.
Xiao Jingheng let out a bitter, self-deprecating smile. Wen Hengyu thought about it and realized he was right. But how could he himself bear to watch the woman he loved marry someone else? His outstretched hand slowly dropped, ultimately dissolving into a silent sigh. The moment Shi Linyuan returned, he vented all his resentment and fury onto Ruo Qingyan. If it weren't for her, how could things have ever reached this point between me and him? He glared at Ruo Qingyan, his voice filled with hatred and venom.
If it weren't for you, the one marrying the princess right now would have been me.
Ruo Qingyan had not rested at all up to this point. As for the wounds on her body, Shi Linyuan did not allow her to use normal medicine, but instead sprinkled a powder that caused rotting. Ruo Qingyan was enduring the agonizing pain of her festering wounds every single second. Even she herself could not understand. Everything had gone so smoothly in her past life. Why had she fallen to such a state in this life? Just because she was reborn, she bit her lip hard and cried out to the system in her mind.
System, help me. I know you still have a way. I cannot just die here.
Host, you do not have enough points right now. You may take out in advance, but if you fail to return the corresponding points afterward, you will be completely obliterated.
Ruo Qingyan trembled, hope flaring up in her eyes. She was going to die either way. She had to gamble one more time. Why should she end up with nothing this time?
What can I get on credit?
Ruo Qingyan asked excitedly.
One opportunity to assassinate the female lead. If the female lead dies in the assassination, you can still acquire her destiny, making all the protagonists in this mini-world fall in love with you.
Hearing the system's words, Ruo Qingyan's eyes grew brighter and brighter. In her past life, she had used this function before. The enemy siege of the city was something she had the system cause in order to force me to my death. Now, as long as she did it one more time, she still had a chance to win. Haha. Ruo Qingyan could not help but laugh, the light of revenge burning in her eyes. So what if she was reborn? As long as I have the system, the one who wins in the end will still be me. Shi Linyuan frowned, looking at Ruo Qingyan's distorted face. A strong sense of unease rose in his heart. He kicked Ruo Qingyan hard in the lower abdomen.
What are you plotting? Speak.
Ruo Qingyan curled up in agony. Blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. Yet, she didn't seem to care about Shi Linyuan's beating at all. She lifted her face, letting out a confident smile. You will fall in love with me again very soon. She had already advanced points from the system. 3 days later, I would be captured by the enemy forces. Once I died, everyone in this minor world would revolve around her again. Seeing Ruo Qingyan's sinister expression, Shi Linyuan's inner panic grew stronger. He quickly summoned Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu back.
Did she really say that? That means as a task taker, she must have one last trick up her sleeve. Heh, how despicable. She cannot compare to the princess in the slightest.
Xiao Jingheng looked at Ruo Qingyan with uncertainty, the disgust on his face evident. Wen Hengyu also frowned in aversion.
Force her to speak. I don't want to fall in love with such a malicious woman. I only like the princess.
Shi Linyuan summoned the guards, inflicting severe punishment upon Ruo Qingyan. Ruo Qingyan screamed in agony, yet she said nothing. Like a madwoman, she only repeated one sentence.
You will all fall in love with me again.
From her words, Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu could also feel that sense of unease, as if they were threatened by something. Their interrogation lasted for 3 days. On the 4th day, news suddenly arrived. The princess had encountered assassins. Shi Linyuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu suddenly realized that this might be Ruo Qingyan's conspiracy. She wanted to kill the princess. Furious, Shi Linyuan grabbed Ruo Qingyan by her neck. After days of torture, Ruo Qingyan was already emaciated beyond recognition. Her once beautiful face was now covered in nothing but scars. Her once clear voice had become extremely hoarse. Even her gaze was cloudy and dull. She was choked and lifted off the ground by Shi Linyuan, unable to breathe at all. The suffocating sensation of impending death washed over her, turning her entire face a bruised purplish blue.
What on earth did you do to the princess? Speak.
His eyes widened in rage, exerting force with his hands, nearly snapping her fragile neck. Ruo Qingyan gritted her teeth and sneered.
If you 3 don't go now, you won't even get to see her one last time. Even if you kill me, it won't bring Jiang Yuning back.
Grand Secretary Shy, you're running out of time. Forget about her. We must go find the princess immediately.
Shi Linyuan threw Ruo Qingyan down violently, ignoring how she lay on the ground coughing up blood, and turned to mount his horse. His heart belongs only to me. If anything happens to me, he will never let Ruo Qingyan off. Shi Linyuan, Xiao Jingheng, and Wen Hengyu followed the clues provided by the guards, and learned that during Gu Jinyan's brief absence, hostile soldiers from out of nowhere had captured me. But I struggled desperately, and eventually managed to hide in an abandoned manor. Yet the walls were surrounded on all sides by enemy troops. The moment I dared to show my face, countless arrows would shoot toward me. Shi Linyuan's eyes turned red with anxiety. He whipped his horse to go faster, arriving at my hiding spot in no time. The guards he brought with him gasped in surprise.
Why are there so many enemy soldiers? This makes no sense.
Ruo Qingyan, she must have done something, but now was not the time for Shi Linyuan to think. Every moment of hesitation only increased the danger I was in, but he was only the Grand Secretary, not skilled in martial arts, and had no way to fight off so many enemy soldiers. As for Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu, one a marquis and the other an heir apparent, neither had trained in martial arts. Charging in blindly would only mean throwing their lives away. They gritted their teeth, watching the movement before them in suspense. Just as Shi Linyuan was thinking of rushing in regardless of everything, just to at least be by my side, a voice came from behind.
Move.
Upon receiving the news, Gu Jinyan, had rushed over immediately. He was the general of the north who led troops into battle and was accustomed to bloodshed. But even if it were him alone, wait, how can you fight against so many enemy troops? I have already sent for reinforcements.
Jinyan, wait!
Gu Jinyan didn't even spare them a glance and barged straight inside. Suddenly, the brief silence was shattered. Holding a spear, Gu Jinyan fought like a man possessed among the enemy. He would not allow anyone to hurt me. Shi Linyuan's breath nearly hitched as he watched. Gu Jinyan fought his way in alone, and holding the injured me, he went on a wild rampage again. The enemy troops surrounding them layers deep seemed as fragile as paper in his eyes. Xiao Jingheng keenly noticed that Gu Jinyan was already injured. Several arrows were lodged in his back, yet Gu Jinyan's movements did not falter in the slightest, protecting me as if he felt no pain at all. Wen Hengyu wanted to rush in with him several times, but shrunk back at the sight of the chaotic scene. He did not possess Gu Jinyan's formidable martial prowess. Once he went in, death would be certain. The three of them clenched their fists, unable to say a single word. In the end, Gu Jinyan slaughtered all the enemies and rushed out covered in blood. He placed me down with extreme care, while he himself let out a heavy gasp and collapsed on the spot. It turned out his back had long been struck by no less than a dozen arrows. Shi Linyuan remained speechless for a long time. When I rejected him, he still felt he had a chance. But seeing this scene, he suddenly realized he really is no match for Gu Jinyan. He wasn't the only one who thought so. Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu also hung their heads in shame. They didn't even have the courage to take a risk for me, so how could they ever hope to compare to Gu Jinyan? After a long time, I was the first to wake up in bed. As soon as I opened my eyes, I sat up in a panic. Jinyan. When Gu Jinyan rescued me, I was still conscious. I saw that Gu Jinyan was covered in blood, but I was also injured and passed out before the end. Is Gu Jinyan all right now? I anxiously tried to get out of bed. Prince Wenheng held me down.
Don't rush. Your injuries are severe. You must rest well.
Where is Jinyan? Is he all right? I struggled to get down, my voice carrying a sob. A bitter smile appeared on Prince Wenheng's lips.
Rest assured, Gu Jinyan is also fine. It is just that his injuries are even more severe than yours, and he hasn't woken up yet.
I want to go see him. I broke free from Wen Hengyu's hand and ran out in a hurry. Wen Hengyu looked at his empty palm, finally clenching and then releasing it slowly. I came to another room. Gu Jinyan was lying inside. I walked over cautiously, looking at the person on the bed with closed eyes. I slowly reached out to check his breath, then listened to his beating heart. Only after confirming repeatedly that Gu Jinyan was indeed still alive did I burst into tears by the bedside. I couldn't imagine what would happen to me if Gu Jinyan died right in front of me. It is fine, as long as Gu Jinyan is still alive. I leaned against Gu Jinyan's chest. I lay on Gu Jinyan's chest, crying, repressively. Xiao Jingheng and Wen Hengyu stood there, without going in.
Where is Grand Secretary She?
Wen Hengyu asked softly.
After sending the princess and Gu Jinyan back for medical treatment, he never showed up again. He now has probably given up.
Xiao Jingheng's voice carried no warmth. Wen Hengyu smiled self-deprecatingly. Even someone like Shi Linyuan had given up, which showed the gap between them and Gu Jinyan. But even knowing that, he still wanted to take one more look at me. Even if it was the sight of me loving another man, he couldn't just walk away like Shi Linyuan did. Xiao Jingheng felt the same. Even though his heart was numb with pain, he still wanted to be by my side. Someone asked again.
What about Ruo Qingyan? Is she still in Grand Secretary Shi's hands?
She is dead. When I went back, I found that Ruo Qingyan was already dead, and she died a horrific death. I guess it was probably the backlash from the so-called system. That was too easy on her. Otherwise, on the charge of conspiring against the princess alone, I wouldn't have let her off easily.
Xiao Jingheng didn't know what to say. Ruo Qingyan was dead too. This meant they wouldn't encounter any more bizarre events in the future, and it also meant things between them and me were completely over. He clenched his fists, staring unwillingly at the person leaning over Gu Jinyan, his throat dry.
I'm leaving. Are you leaving too?
It seems I am the one holding out until the end.
Yeah, if I had to look at this scene every day, sooner or later, I would go mad too. It is better to leave, just as Her Highness wanted, never to disturb her again.
Xiao Jingheng forced a smile. With that said, Xiao Jingheng walked away, his silhouette lonely. Wen Hengyu took a deep breath and walked into the room.
Your Highness, staying here will disturb Jinyan's rest. He is covered in wounds and needs some time of quiet recovery. Let me help you to the bed first.
I shook my head stubbornly. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. I won't be at ease unless I see Jinyan wake up with my own eyes. My injuries are nothing. I want to watch over Jinyan. Wen Hengyu couldn't persuade me otherwise, nor did he dare to force me, fearing he might hurt my wounds. So, he had no choice but to let me stay. Following the imperial physician's instructions, I changed the medicine once every day. Looking at the wounds on Gu Jinyan's back, I couldn't help but shed tears every single time. These were all left from saving me. My fingers gently touched them, not even daring to apply any pressure. After applying the medicine, I wrapped them up immediately. I helped Gu Jinyan wipe his body and fed him spoonful by spoonful. When I was tired at night, I would just rest my head at the bedside. Wen Hengyu came to persuade me more than once, saying I would ruin my own body this way, but I still refused to leave even a single step. I was truly afraid if I left, would I never see Gu Jinyan again? After half a month of painstaking and dedicated care, Gu Jinyan finally opened his eyes. He felt as though he had a very long dream. In the dream, it was the past life I had mentioned. He had not declared his feelings, watching the woman he loved marry someone else. While he went to the northern city alone, he had thought she would live happily, but who could have guessed that every time he received news, it was about my scandals. He was so furious that he wanted to return to the capital and ask those people what on earth they were doing. How wonderful a person I was. How could they let me down like that? But by the time he finally returned, he only found my cold corpse. He had arrived too late, allowing me to be forced to jump from the city wall. Gu Jinyan did not know how long he fought in a bloodbath, but he finally forced the enemy army to retreat. Yet, my life could never be brought back. Without me, what was the point of him living? Holding his beloved in his arms, he leaped off the cliff along with me. When he opened his eyes again, it was not a towering cliff, but a warm room. Gu Jinyan looked down and found me lying on his chest, with tears still hanging from the corners of my eyes. So all of that really was just a dream. That was truly wonderful. The person he loved most was not dead. Gu Jinyan smiled gently, straining to raise a hand to stroke my hair. I struggled for a couple of seconds in my sleep, slowly opened my eyes, and realized the person in front of me had actually woken up. I froze for a moment, then threw my arms around him, weeping.
You're finally awake. Do you know how long you've been unconscious?
I cried out loud.
No matter how long I was unconscious, as long as we're fine, this is already the best outcome. And most importantly, in this lifetime, I have finally protected you. Yuning.
Gu Jinyan weakly wiped away my tears. The tears I had just held back fell once more. Gu Jinyan was right. No matter how many dangers we went through, in the end, we were both fine. And since Ruo Qingyan was already dead, no one could ever tear us apart again. The two embraced each other tightly. Anyone who saw them would envy their love. Wen Hengyu stood outside the door. Seeing this scene, he could no longer find the strength to persist. His shallow affection before me and Gu Jinyan was nothing short of a joke. Shi Linyuan probably saw through this, which was why he left so resolutely. The gentle heir Wen placed the Wen family seal outside the door. This was the only gift he could leave for me. If there is a next life, he hopes everything will be as it should be, and that I can grow old with the one I love.